There's nothing more frightening than when your car suddenly shuts off while you're driving. This can be a very dangerous situation, and it's important to know the causes of this problem and how to fix it. A bad fuel pump, fuel injectors, air intake, or spark plugs could all cause the car to shut off while driving, but it could also be a lack of fuel. Cleaning or replacing the broken part will restore the car back to normal. In this blog post, we will discuss the most common reasons why cars shut off while driving and what you can do to prevent it from happening. We'll also provide some tips on how to deal with this situation if it does occur. Why does my car shut down while driving? There are a few common reasons why a car might shut off while driving. One possibility is that the fuel supply is interrupted. This can happen if the fuel line is clogged or the fuel pump is not working properly. Another possibility is that the ignition system is not working correctly. This can be caused by a faulty spark plug or ignition coil. If your car shuts off while driving, it's important to pull over to a safe location and call for roadside assistance. A tow truck can take your car to a nearby service station where it can be diagnosed and repaired. If you're experiencing car trouble, it's always best to consult with a professional mechanic to make sure the problem is fixed properly. Attempting to fix the problem yourself could result in further damage to your vehicle. How to test the fuel supply. If your car shuts off while driving, it's possible that the fuel supply has been interrupted. To test this, turn the key to the on position without starting the engine. If the fuel pump doesn't engage, then it's likely that there's an issue with the fuel supply. How does a fuel pump work? A fuel pump is a mechanical or electrical device that transfers fuel from the tank to the carburetor or injectors in an internal combustion engine. The fuel pump draws gasoline out of the tank and pushes it into the carburetor or injectors at the correct pressure. In order for an engine to run, it must have a way to bring fuel from the gas tank to the cylinders. The fuel pump is responsible for this task. It is usually located inside the gas tank near the bottom. The pump has a small electric motor that runs on batteries. This electric motor powers a set of gears that pumps the gasoline up to the engine. The fuel pump is an important part of the engine because it provides the necessary pressure to keep the engine running. If the fuel pump is not working properly, the engine will not run. An engine that does not have enough pressure will run slowly or not at all. There are two types of fuel pumps, mechanical and electrical. Mechanical fuel pumps are the most common type. They are simple and reliable, but they can be difficult to repair if they break down. Electrical fuel pumps are more complex, but they are easier to repair. Fuel pumps must be able to withstand high temperatures and pressures. Most fuel pumps are made of metal, but some are made of plastic. The materials that fuel pumps are made of must be compatible with the type of fuel that they will be pumping. For example, gasoline is a very corrosive fuel, so the materials that fuel pumps are made of must be able to resist corrosion. Fuel pumps are designed to last for the life of the vehicle. However, they can sometimes fail prematurely. The most common cause of fuel pump failure is a loss of power. This can happen if the battery dies or if the engine is not getting enough power. Fuel pumps can also fail due to a buildup of debris in the pump itself. This debris can come from dirt, rust, or even the gasoline itself. If the debris is not removed, it can eventually cause the pump to fail. It is important to keep your fuel pump clean and free of debris. You can do this by regularly inspecting the pump and cleaning it if necessary. You should also have your fuel pump checked by a mechanic if you think it is not working properly. How to test the fuel pump. There are a few ways that you can test your fuel pump to see if it is working properly. One way is to listen to the pump while it is running. If you hear a whining noise, this is an indication that the pump is not working properly. Another way to test the fuel pump is to check the pressure of the fuel system. This can be done with a pressure gauge. If the pressure is low, this could be an indication that the pump is not working properly. Finally, you can check for leaks in the fuel system. If you see any leaks, this could be an indication that the pump is not working properly. How to test fuel pump with a pressure gauge. 1. Connect a pressure gauge to the fuel system. 2. Start the engine and let it idle for a few minutes. 3. Rev the engine and check the pressure on the gauge. 4. If the pressure is low, this could be an indication that the pump is not working properly. How to test fuel pump with a leakage tester. 1. Connect a leakage tester to the fuel system. 2. Start the engine and let it idle for a few minutes. 3. Check for leaks in the system. 4. If you see any leaks, this could be an indication that the pump is not working properly. Steps to the clean fuel pump. 1. Disconnect the negative battery cable. 2. Remove the fuel pump from the vehicle. 3. Clean the pump with a clean cloth. 4. Inspect the pump for any damage or corrosion. 5. Replace the pump if necessary. 6. Reconnect the negative battery cable. How to replace the fuel pump. Replacing the fuel pump is a fairly simple job that can be done by anyone with basic mechanical knowledge. To replace it, follow these steps. 1. Jack up the vehicle and support it on jack stands. 2. Disconnect the negative battery cable. 3. Disconnect the fuel lines from the pump using a fuel line disconnect tool. 4. Disconnect the electrical connector from the pump. 5. Remove the bolts that hold the pump in place. 6. Remove the pump from the vehicle. 7. Inspect the pump for any damage or corrosion. 8. Clean the pump with a clean cloth if necessary. 9. Install the new pump in the reverse order of removal. 10. Reconnect the negative battery cable. 11. Start the engine and check for leaks. 12. Adjust the fuel pressure if necessary. 13. Test drive the vehicle to make sure the pump is working properly. How to prevent fuel pump failure. 1. Keep your fuel system clean and free of debris. 2. Inspect the fuel pump regularly and clean it if necessary. 3. Have your fuel pump checked by a mechanic if you think it is not working properly. 4. Use a higher quality gas to help prevent the buildup of debris in the pump. 5. Add a fuel system cleaner to your gas tank periodically to help prevent the buildup of debris in the pump. 6. Follow the manufacturer's recommended maintenance schedule for your vehicle. How to test spark plugs. Spark plugs are an essential part of a car's engine, and they need to be tested regularly to ensure that they are working properly. There are a few different ways to test spark plugs, but the most common method is with a spark plug tester. This is a simple tool that you can use to check the resistance of the spark plug, and it will also tell you if the spark plug is firing correctly. To use a spark plug tester, first make sure that the engine is turned off and all of the wires are disconnected. Next, remove the spark plug from the engine and screw the tester into the spark plug hole. Once the tester is in place, turn on the engine and let it run for a few minutes. You should see a reading on the tester that tells you if the spark plug is working properly. If the reading is low, then the spark plug is not firing correctly and needs to be replaced. How to replace spark plugs. If you need to replace your spark plugs, the process is fairly simple. First, make sure that the engine is turned off and all of the wires are disconnected. Next, remove the old spark plug from the engine and screw in the new one. Make sure that the new spark plug is tight and then reconnect all of the wires. Finally, start the engine and let it run for a few minutes to make sure that the new spark plug is working properly. How to clean spark plugs. Spark plugs can become dirty over time, and this can cause them to misfire. If you notice that your spark plugs are dirty, you can clean them with a wire brush. First, make sure that the engine is turned off and all of the wires are disconnected. Next, remove the spark plugs from the engine and brush them with the wire brush. Once they are clean, screw them back into the engine and reconnect all of the wires. Finally, start the engine and let it run for a few minutes to make sure that the spark plugs are working properly. How to test the ignition coil. The ignition coil is responsible for providing the spark that ignites the fuel in the engine. If the ignition coil is not working properly, the engine will not start. There are a few different ways to test the ignition coil, but the most common method is with an ohmmeter, a function of the multimeter. To use an ohmmeter, first make sure that the engine is turned off and all of the wires are disconnected. Next, remove the ignition coil from the engine and connect the ohmmeter to the terminals on the coil. Turn on the ohmmeter and you should see a reading that tells you if the coil is working properly. If the reading is low, then the coil needs to be replaced. How to replace the ignition coil. If you need to replace your ignition coil, the process is fairly simple. First, make sure that the engine is turned off and disconnect all wires. Disconnect the battery too. Next, remove the old ignition coil from the engine and screw in the new one. Make sure that the new ignition coil is tight, and then reconnect all of the wires. Finally, start the engine and let it run for a few minutes to make sure that the new ignition coil is working properly. To summarize what we talked about in this video, if your car shuts off while driving, there are a few possible causes. The most common cause is a problem with the fuel pump, spark plugs, or ignition coil. You can clean or replace the spark plugs yourself, but you will probably need to take the vehicle to a mechanic to have the ignition coil replaced. Be sure to consult your owner's manual for specific recommendations on when to replace your spark plugs and ignition coil. I hope this video helped. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and follow so you don't miss any of my videos.